This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the ultimate website builder no matter what your needs may be.
I'm really not a giant guy. I'm on a miniature set for a film we just finished called Beanstalk. It turned out great, and at the end of the movie, of course, the giant comes down and chases Jack. So I think Beanstalk should be out later on this year in 1994.
When I was doing research on the last movie featured in this series, 1995's Magic Island, I was reminded of another surreal family film, produced by this same studio, a retelling of a classic fairy tale called Beanstalk.
God bless you!
Much like Magic Island, I remember this movie always playing on the Disney Channel in the mid to late 90s.
History repeats itself.
Which explains why I initially misremembered this being a Disney Channel original movie. In actuality, Beanstalk was released by Paramount Home Video, and the production company, Moonbeam Entertainment, later sold the syndication rights to Disney.
Cash or charge?
What?
It's so strange how many of the weird movies we experienced as kids resonated deep within our minds, going undisturbed for decades. But all it takes is watching just a few minutes of one of these movies as an adult to unlock memories that we didn't even know we had.
I didn't say them!
Indeed, that was the case with Beanstalk for me, as once the plot got up and running, I was shocked by just how many elements of this movie I remembered.
But I think somebody's imagination is just running away with him. Take a nap.
Although I could have sworn that it starred Fred Savage, proving that my kid brain wasn't perfect after all.
Are you blind?
Being able to recall so many details of this movie is honestly a testament to all of the crazy yet inventive imagery in it. And unlike Magic Island, which I was able to appreciate aspects of as an adult, even if I didn't enjoy the movie overall, I found myself pleasantly surprised by Beanstalk.
You do know you're whack, right?
As it's filled with jokes that surely went way over my head as a kid.
I wish we'd elected that Kennedy guy. He may not be as handsome as Nixon, but he's a whole lot smarter.
If only us 90s kids had been more familiar with the politics of Richard Nixon.
What kind of a stupid idiot believes in little people?
Oh, Mom!
In my last video, I said that any of the movies produced at Moonbeam would make great candidates in this series. Honestly, any of the movies that Moonbeam put out would make excellent candidates for this series.
See, I did say that.
So why waste time? Let's jump back in with a look at another one of the eclectic films that came from Moonbeam, 1994's Beanstalk.
I will show you. I will show you all.
Now, I won't go into the full history of Moonbeam Entertainment again for this video, but to summarize, they were the family films division of Charles Band's Full Moon Features, a production company that gave life to dozens of cult sci-fi and horror movies from the 80s and 90s. This time I want to look at the history of the classic fairy tale that inspired this movie, along with some of its adaptations on film and TV.
Yeah, that's not the way the story goes.
The first written account of the Jack and the Beanstalk story came in 1734, though versions of the tale had been told orally for centuries prior, as stories of heroes battling great monsters were common themes in English mythology.
What a hideous monstrous face! Oh!
The story of Jack and the Beanstalk that we are all familiar with today is credited to Australian writer Joseph Jacobs, who put the most frequently told version of the story into writing in 1890. Different versions of the story appeared in countless fairy tale anthologies and books throughout the next decade, transcribed by writers who often altered, removed, and added their own spins on the story. For instance, some versions gave the giant a sympathetic wife, while in other versions the character is not present.
Why, you sweep me off my feet.
I'd need a little help for that.
Being that folktales and mythologies became the basis for the first ever adventure films, Jack and the Beanstalk received its first adaptation in 1902, in the form of a 10-minute short film made by American film pioneer Edwin S. Porter.
You must have me confused with David Selznick. I don't make major motion pictures, I make crap.
Another short came in 1917, this time from Fox Film, a precursor to 20th Century Fox, though this version is now considered lost.
There's been a number of sightings, but there's never been enough evidence to prove their existence.
The story's popularity and lack of copyright also made it a convenient option to adapt in animation as well, and some of the era's most prominent cartoon characters headlined their own versions of the story.
Bum! I smell the blood of a little bum!
Including Betty Boop, Mickey Mouse, Woody Woodpecker, and Bugs Bunny.
What's up, Doc?
Disney later expanded upon their adaptation in 1947 as part of an anthology film.
Why?
Well, because.
The first feature-length film adaptation of the story wouldn't come until 1952, starring, oddly enough, Abbott and Costello.
Well, cut me up.
Taking inspiration from The Wizard of Oz, the movie is a musical retelling of the fairy tale.
That's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Bookended by sepia-toned scenes of Bud and Lou in the present day.
I had the most beautiful dream.
Dream? Asleep on the job.
While the duo did their most acclaimed work at Universal Pictures, they had it written into their contract to allow them to make one film independently of the studio every year. Which is how some of their most impressive, albeit bizarre, movies got made. And Jack and the Beanstalk is no exception.
He can't get away because I let them...
For decades now, this movie has been in the public domain. Even today, you could probably find a DVD copy at most bargain stores.
I should have my head examined. Trying to make you rich.
If you have an interest in checking out this movie the way it was meant to be seen, I highly recommend the recent remaster by Classic Flicks.
High class, huh?
As a digital creator, it's been really important for me to find a website builder that I can rely on to best connect with my audience, which is why I am so excited to be partnering with Squarespace for today's video. I'm sure you're familiar with their name, but are you familiar with just how committed Squarespace is to elevating your brand? Well, let me tell you how. Squarespace provides all the essential tools needed to succeed in launching a website. Whether you're an entrepreneur in need of an online store to sell products, or an independent creative looking to showcase your work, their customizable layouts will help you easily create an online space that feels unique to you and your brand, no matter what your website goals may be. I've used site builders in the past that quickly overwhelm me with their confusing navigation and clunky design, but that hasn't been the case with Squarespace. Through their interactive Blueprint AI, I was guided through a series of expertly crafted colors, fonts, and layouts to choose from, quickly allowing me to achieve my vision. Their user-friendly features also help me seamlessly integrate YouTube videos and audio feeds into those layouts, which is vital to my brand. Other website builders have made this process so complicated, but Squarespace made it so easy to navigate. They also provide a vast library of stock images, which was so helpful in adding variety to my website. Have you been debating launching a website of your own? Well, now is the time. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to www.squarespace.com/hatsoffentertainment, and you'll save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Over the next several years, the story was adapted and parodied on several TV shows, including Gilligan's Island.
Aha! There you are! Come out from behind there!
And later, Shelley Duvall's Fairytale Theater, which, by the way, I am planning a full retrospective on later this year.
What's life all about? Being a wicked giant is just kind of... fruitless.
Various film versions followed, including one starring Gene Kelly in 1967, which blended live actors with hand-drawn animation. By the time this movie entered production, the most common film version, outside of the Abbott and Costello one, was probably Mickey and the Beanstalk, as Disney had split it from its original anthology film and packaged it on its own VHS. This is definitely the version that I saw first, and the giant here is the one I always picture when thinking of this story.
You hear that frog?
But much like the fairy tale had been a convenient backdrop for early animation, it offered the same convenience for the first slate of films produced at Moonbeam, as it was a story that most kids were familiar with, and even better, there was still no copyright to worry about.
This is truly a primitive society.
Beanstalk was the third film produced at the studio, behind Prehysteria and Remote. The screenwriter of the former, Michael Davis, wrote this movie, and would also be hired to direct it. Davis was originally a storyboard artist, working on Tremors and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, though at the time of Beanstalk's production, he had never directed a feature, rather just 2 episodes of a show created by the Kyoto brothers called The Amazing Live Sea Monkeys.
They might sell better than ant farms.
Moonbeam's founder, Charles Band, really liked nurturing and developing young filmmakers, much in the way that Roger Corman did, so it totally makes sense why Davis was hired to direct his own script.
When I first read the script, I thought, well, this is a huge budget movie, obviously. This is how are they going to do this? This is really complicated stuff. In fact, Michael was brilliantly figured out ways to trick the eye. They were done partly through the camera, partly with simply making miniatures and then thinking greater than life and getting your perspective right.
Now, I don't want to repeat too much of what I said in my Magic Island video.
No one was listening to you then, and no one is listening to you now!
But I do again have to praise the level of craftsmanship that went into these Moonbeam films. Being that they were just cheap kids' movies, the creative teams could have easily phoned it in, as we as kids surely wouldn't have known the difference, but they approached every element of these movies, the creatures, the sets, and the effects, with the same passion and dedication that they did for the studio's more commercial adult films.
They've captured some of my people and imprisoned them in stone. The thieves!
While Beanstalk pretty much adapts the classic Fairytale beat for beat, it's balanced out by those staples we all came to expect from 90s kids movies, such as Bart Simpson-style catchphrases and one-liners.
You spilled cherry freeze on my report card.
So? Did you a favor? Now you don't have to show it to your parents.
Herculean amounts of slime and goo. Home Alone-inspired slapstick. Gadgets, bugs, bullies, and the fat kid.
Hey, wait a minute.
Though in this case, those two are one and the same, played by yet another 90s movie staple, Patrick Renna.
Try it. Show me some of your best kid poses. That's great. Come on, strike a pose. Show me another one. Come on, show me. Keep them coming. What?
I will say, I was a little worried that this movie would force in a romantic subplot between the main kid and a girl he has a crush on. And while they do set things up that way, they only give her a couple of scenes and then she's out of the movie.
Oh, thank God.
The main character is a boy named, fittingly enough, Jack. Played not by Fred Savage, but J.D. Daniels.
And I'm truly sorry, too, that you're gonna have to haul your big fat butt out of here. Look, this is still our house until midnight, so get off our property.
He's an angry elf.
Like the classic tale goes, Jack and his widowed mother are struggling to make ends meet.
One minuscule problem, there is no water.
Oh, here. I snitched some moist towelettes from the diner.
Unlike that story, however, this Jack is far more critical of his mother.
Oh, come on, man. Anything's gotta pay better than waitressing at the chicken shack.
A waitress named Rebecca, played by Bill's mom.
Stepmom's cute. Shut up, Ted.
Jack even takes an active interest in his mother's dating life, rooting for her to be, I guess, friends with benefits with a local shopkeeper named Mr. Ladd, played by David Naughton.
I'm just not ready for a relationship.
Oh, there are no strings attached.
This is truly a primitive society.
In a clever spin on Jack and the Beanstalk lore, Jack's mom sends him to sell some old family antiques, including a ceramic cow, which Jack ends up breaking when he trips over a mysterious crate that fell off a passing truck, a crate which contains magic beans.
Bean.
And you know where this is going. The discarded beans sprout a giant beanstalk in Jack's yard overnight, turning into a sensation for the town.
Ordered the beanstalk pie.
Enter Dr. Kate Winston, a cryptozoologist played by Lois Lane herself, Margot Kidder.
Exactly that. He can probably smell us right now. You know, fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman.
Similarly to Andrew Devoff in Magic Island, Kidder is having what can only be described as a blast in her role, and the movie is better because of it.
My character was so much fun to play, Doc Winston, who Michael and I, bless his heart, made into the most eccentric sort of combination of Indiana Jones and one of those English botanist ladies who's quite eccentric and befuddled, and always knocking things over and falling down and making a mess of things.
Kate believes that the original fairy tale was not just some myth, but rather a true account of an event that happened centuries ago.
This beanstalk proves that the old fairy tales aren't myths, but they're eyewitness accounts of events that actually happened.
Believing giants to be real, she attempts to ward them off.
What's that, garlic to ward him off?
No, garlic is for vampires. For giants, you need something far more repellent.
Okay, like what?
Diarrhea?
Beanstalk features another kids' movie trope in the form of an evil banker named Leech, played by Richard Mall.
Hello, Jack.
Hello, Lurch.
Hello, Newman.
Another actor having way too much fun here.
Do you really believe there's a giant at the top of the beanstalk?
I haven't ruled out the possibility. That's one of the other reasons that I am cutting down this beanstalk today!
Leech plans to foreclose on Jack's house, unless Rebecca can come up with the late mortgage payments. A shockingly rational motivation for a villain.
You can all just forget about the free radio when you open an account at my bank.
Jack sees this as his opportunity to save their house, and no longer have to bathe with wet wipes.
Please tell me you're gonna pay the water bill before I have to shower with one of these things again.
You're a walking disaster area!
And he decides to climb the beanstalk in search of the giant's legendary treasure, pursued by bully/fat kid/poet Danny.
Doesn't it bother you that you're picking on somebody smaller than you?
Conscience is but a word that cowards use, devised at first to keep the strong in awe.
The beanstalk leads directly into the home of a family of giants, whose patriarch is played by Artie Lang.
Oh, ho, ho, that's rich. Perhaps I should be calling you G.I. Joe.
Just kidding. That's Stuart Pankin, who almost certainly was cast based on his performance as the head of another monstrous family, in a TV show that was airing at the same time.
Honey, I'm home.
And this is where the movie really comes alive, even though it is 30 minutes in. A result of Stewart's performance, the design and look of the giant characters, and the really great sets.
My ancestors kicked your butts before, and we'll do it again.
Now look, don't go into this movie expecting a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids level of production design, as you can feel a, let's just say, certain budgetary limitation over the sets and makeup. I mean, in some shots, the giant looks like a stock photo you'd see on one of those DIY makeup kits from a Halloween store.
Oh, ho, ho, that's rich.
But this movie still goes above and beyond what you would expect from a direct-to-video kids movie, and I have to give it props for that.
Hello?
Don't you think you're too old to believe in little people?
I sit on it!
The giants are depicted less like the typical ones you would expect in a Jack and the Beanstalk story, and more like coneheads.
Oh, sweetness, what have we talked about? Don't sit up straight. It's gonna ruin your posture, dear. Come on.
There's a great 1950s sitcom feeling to the characters and their world, which adds yet another fun spin on the story.
Man, looks like Leave It to Beaver meets King Kong.
Another great interpretation has the giants telling their own revisionist history version of Jack and the Beanstalk, where Jack is the true villain.
So, the carpenter grabbed it all back from a sly demon Jack and began climbing up the beanstalk.
Joining the father giant is a mother giant and a daughter as well, with the latter being played by a little person actress, which admittedly does make things a bit awkward when the giants start bashing humans, as they refer to them as little people.
For Halloween, I want to go as a little person. They're scary.
That's not the way to speak to anybody.
Stuart Pankin doesn't break precedent though, joining the other adult performers that are having a great time in this movie. When he spots Jack and Danny in the house, he becomes hellbent on capturing them, and the movie takes on a very Tom and Jerry quality from here on out.
I hate little people.
The thing I have to give this movie the most credit for, though, is its final act.
Sorry.
Wow, little people indeed.
It could have ended the same way that the fairy tale does, with the giant plummeting to his death when the beanstalk is chopped down. But we instead get a really great final set piece, where the giant actually makes it down the beanstalk, and he wreaks havoc on the town, in a sequence that's a clear throwback to the giant monster movies of the 50s and 60s. The entire town set is brought to life by a series of really detailed miniatures.
Mets lose to Giants. All right!
Watching this scene play out, it's so evident that the crew were inspired by their own experiences seeing those classic monster movies as children, something they then set about trying to recreate here for the kids of the 90s.
That's gotta hurt! It's gotta hurt!
And honestly, I think that's why so many of these movies take on a dreamlike quality after the fact. Because in an era when family entertainment feels so rushed and commercialized, it's legitimately hard to imagine a time when a direct-to-video kids movie resulted in so many people, both in front of and behind the camera, taking their jobs to heart, and making movies that have stayed with us for decades.
Yeah. You're a walking disaster area!